Meow! Huples cat and Wolfie dog. What we're going to do today is we're going to do a show and tell of some stuff I got as a prep. So we're just going to show you a video that's a little disturbing. I warn you, it's for adults only. But Joe Primal, you know, he is what he is. He looks like he looks. But he actually shows some burns, and that's not the disturbing part. That was the good bit. Not for him, but for me. Because it made me think, you know, how set up am I in my home to deal with burns if hospital care is unavailable? Now, burns should always be treated seriously.
Hey guys, I hope you're having a better New Year than I am so far. Mine started a little rough. I got a cooking injury, canning split pea soup, and one of them just went off like a grenade. And I got splattered with scalding hot stuff, and just like that, I was burned up like a crisp.
As you'll see from the still shot where Joe got his burn, actually avoids stretch areas. Any burns, even thin burns, partial thickness burns, or whatever you want to call them, first, second degree, third degree. So even partial thickness burns over joints or over areas where you extend should be seen by a medical professional for treatment. Because although it may be fine initially, over time you can get scarring, which is called a specific type called keloid scarring, but you can also get loss of mobility in the area because of skin tightening as the scarring occurs. Now looking at Joe's, I don't think he's at risk from that. This looks very superficial, painful, but superficial, just the top layer of the skin. So obviously you did the right first aid. So one of the things I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go back and talk about first aid for burns and also for SHTF treatment for burns. But I'll do that in another set of videos. But for this one, Woolie's mom's gone shopping. For this one, what I want to do is I'm going to show you what I had and what I now have to treat burns in the home in a first aid situation with a view towards SHTF. So the first thing I have is my home first aid kit. Now I did have quite a few tackle boxes full of medications and other stuff and dressings, and I have huge burns dressings and all that stuff, but it's actually not here. It's at the Shire because we're getting ready to move in a few months or half a year or so. So what do I have in this? Well, in this everyday kit, which I've added little bits to, all first aid kits, in my opinion, should have sterile gloves on the outside or should have nitrile gloves on the outside. Because I have sterile ones, I have them here, because you put them on first before you go into the pack. If you have blood and debris on your hands, it saves you wasting a lot of stuff. Now this section actually has burns, and it's a little disappointing. What is in the burns is basically aloe vera cream. Better than nothing. It'll help cool you down slightly, but it's not the greatest for deep burns. For full thickness burns, I wouldn't even have put this on. What's missing in this is a whole bunch of other things, like very thick dressing material that absorb, because you will shed massive quantities of water from a burn this deep. So what I have on the outside is nappy pins, safety pins, and that's to use materials that are clean. Freshly laundered sweatshirts can be rolled up and tied on tight over the area so they will soak through. You'll use a huge amount of dressing materials on any burns. Specifically, you'll use a lot on full thickness penetrating burns that go through the top layers of the skin down to the muscle and even down to the bone. Now the other thing that's in this kit that's useful is actually instant cold packs. But I'll point out to you, the only use for these is if you get a little boo-boo cut. If you're actually using these on a massive area burn, you can actually make the person, although they're very hot because the body key is up, you can actually make them hypothermic, and you can actually cause burning by putting cold on hot tissue. So this would never be placed directly. You'd place a layer of gauze and you'd move it frequently. But it would help reduce the heat that's inside the tissue, which is also causing further damage after the burns occur. I also have some dressing material to go around. These are Tensor Bandages. These are great. You should always have these in your kits, especially outdoor kits, but for all of them. And there's a few other bits and pieces in here that I would be able to use for burns, but basically it's kind of useless. So when I saw Joe's video, I thought, what do I actually do? Now Kitty burns her fingers like all the time, so we have little clear transparent dressings called offsites, and she uses polysporin on them even though I tell her not to. And she runs them under the tap for 10-15 minutes to cool the area off. And for partial, very thin, superficial burns like Joe has, That's a good way of dealing with it. And you don't really need a dressing cover. The other thing with burns is don't pop the blisters. Do not pop the blisters. Press them very gently on the outside of the blister. It's actually a sterile area inside the blister and you don't want to get infection. But there'll be more of that in future videos. So having realized that I was inadequately provided for, I went online and I found what I thought, and which I still think for me in Canada is a cheap alternative, and I will link them. This is not a paid promotion. They don't know I'm doing this video and I paid full price for all of this stuff and did not ask for a discount or any of that stuff that people do routinely now online and then claim that it's an honest review. This is an honest review because I bought it. Now it's from Canadian Safety Supplies. What I like about these is I got the kits. You can get metal box versions of this for an extra $10 Canadian. I didn't want that. I like lightweight gear. This is their basic burns kit. This is what comes in the basic burns kit. And I'll put the prices and stuff in the description. Wasn't bad. Bear in mind it's Canadian prices, so it's a lot less from America, and you probably have to pay more in America, and you probably have your own stuff. So when you open these kits up, this is the basic burns kit. It has woefully inadequate tape. This is basically rubbish tape. I can easily replace this with proper hospital tape, I will. This is woefully inadequate. It has a cling roll. This is a basic cling roll. Hospital supply cling roll is better, but it's kind of okay. What this has in it is emergency burn gel. 3 sterile containers of it. So what's in this? This contains Manuka oil. I don't recommend Manuka oil. I do think that if you've got a very, very superficial burn, like on a finger, this might work. And the next time Kitty burns a finger, and she will, I will try one of these on her and see what happens. There is a little bit of vinyl gloves. Again, like I say, vinyl gloves should always be on the outside of all dressing kits. So why don't I do that? I can't do that. So what I'll do is I'll get a safety pin and I'll put this on the outside of the kit. These are stainless steel bandage Sears. I think this is a little bit heavy duty for what it is, and I'm not going to open them up. I don't really know if you need it for this type of tiny little kit. There's no actual much cutting required here. You're probably just going to use the whole thing. Now the reason I spent the extra money getting this was because you also got 3 of these. And this is what I actually wanted this little kit for, and this was a cheaper way for me when I looked at the price of the kits and also individual stuff to get 3 more of these. This is mostly water and an emulsifant and glycol and propylene glycol. And you can feel the pack, it's a metallized pack, it's cold. And this will help cool down major burns. So you would put about 3 millimeters to 5 millimeters, and I'll do a diagram of that and show you what I mean in inches, of this stuff over the whole area of the burn. And once a day, or once every 2 days, or once every 3 days, or once every 4 days, or once every 5 days, when the dressing is completely saturated, you remove it using sterile procedures at N95, don't breathe into the wound, and you would gently remove all of this stuff with normal saline, which you can make, and you would then reapply it. So as you can imagine, there's going to be, this is basically the thickness you're going to use. So if you've got a burn on just the arm alone, you're going to use 3 of these. And you're going to use them, if you have the material, once every 4 hours on a major deep burn. This is better than nothing. It's still inadequate. There is only one medication externally topical for burns that is useful, that's very good. I'm not putting oil-based stuff on this like Kitty does on her little fingers. What I'm doing is I'm putting stuff that can easily be wiped away and won't cause infection. I can't get it, and I used to be able to get it like a decade ago, but it costs a huge amount of money. It's called FLAMAZINE, and it's 1% solution of FLAMAZINE. It's a white thick cream, and you put 3 mils to 5 mils on it and reapply. It's absolutely brilliant for burns, and I can't get it. It's prescription only in Canada, and I think in America. And it's called, the trade name, like I said, is FLAMAZINE, but it's SULFADIAZINE. I've said that wrong, so I'll put that up. So I have an appeal here. If anybody out there actually has access to FLAMAZINE, actually has access to this product, I would be happy to pay a bonus extra if you'd buy it for me and send it to me in Canada. It is absolutely brilliant for that. I do believe I have an old tube floating around in some kit somewhere, but not in the house, but at the Shire. So I bought these as extras, and it's called Burn Stop. And what's in the Burn Stop? Well, actually what's in the Burn Stop are the little packets that I just showed you. So I have more of them, okay? So this is Burn Stop, but it's the same material. It's the same ingredients as the other one in the small burns kit. Also some of this. Now this is cream 0.5% and it's cimetidine cream. And this is actually okay for minor burns. And I'm actually quite happy I got this. So this is something I might look to get more of in the future from this supplier. But like I said, really like to have FLAMAZINE. The other thing is 2 tubes of this. This is PEG. We call this PEG. It's polyethylene glycol and it's water soluble ointment. So you can put the ointment onto cool the area. And as you can see, it's a normal flip top. And when you open it up, you have gel. So it's a squeeze gel. And it immediately feels cool when you put it on. This is better than nothing, and that's why I wanted to get these. The only problem with PEG is I can see it getting bacterially infected over time, so I don't think this is going to last a long time. Now, I like to prepare, so I got a large amount of the burn stock. Like I said, I'd rather have FLAMAZINE, but I don't have it. So these are 6 bottles of this, and what this is the burn relief spray, so it's the same stuff as previously. Purified water. So when you take this off, and you can literally, it squirts the gel out, you see? And it immediately feels cool. So this is not for first aid, though if it's a tiny little finger burn, use this for first aid. What this stuff actually is for, and it smears on and let it evaporate, that's how it works, reduces the heat by evaporation. This stuff is for ongoing treatment of burns. In the here and now, if you get a burn and it's significant, go to a doctor, go to the emerge department, and when they give you a prescription for FLAMAZINE, ask for FLAMAZINE as a prescription and ask for a lot of it if you can. If they say, oh well, we'll get to say, you know, my hands are kind of shaky, I might have some trouble putting it on, can I have twice that amount? I'm happy to pay for it. And they'll say, wow, it's really expensive, you know. You go, yeah, I know. It's probably going to be $100 to $200 Canadian a tube. It's really expensive, but it's brilliant for burns. It's what burn centres use. So that's why I got that. So now I can cover a fair amount of area of a burn victim and keep reapplying it probably for a couple of days or more. Like I say, when I do the burns series of videos, I'll actually explain to you when you don't treat and when you stop treatment and how to actually get away with treating people without modern technology as well as with modern technology. So this was the first thing I bought. This is actually designed for McDonald's to buy a burns kit. So if you're using fats and stuff, they supply these. So again, this is designed for first aid before the paramedics show up. Again, I want gloves on the outside of these containers. When I open it up, what do I get? I get some of these. These are big, heavy duty. Again, the thickness inside of here is basically the thickness I want to put on the person. This will cool and smooth and moisturize, non-adherent, which is very important, non-toxic is very important, and water soluble, which is vital. Now it does have parabens, but it has quite a few ingredients in there, so you can have a look at that. Again, this is not really something I would probably use very much in the here and now, but in SHTF, when I have no alternative, this could well save somebody's life or not. It depends on how deep the burn is. You then get this pouch which actually rips off, and it has a handy dandy first aid guide, they're always good, and it has some cleaning solutions both for your equipment and also for your hands. These are actually designed for hands, so that's just that. Now on the back of this there is cotton tips, sterile cotton tips to actually get underneath wounds and actually clean, get debris out. Some more of those cheap scissors, and that's basically it. In the top of this, a few packs of those burn stops, so I have lots of cream to put on people. Some very, very cheap and kind of useless gauze dressings. A tube of the burn spray. A cheap but okay gauze. 3 gauzes, cheap but okay. And the cold pack, and this one needs to be activated. And 3 tubes of this stuff. A tube of the gel, and 2 tubes of the PEG. So by putting your gear back together again and handling it quite a bit, you get to know where's what and how to use it, and it's important. Now in the bottom container there's something that's actually kind of useful. There is a whole bunch of these, the vinyl gloves, and I'm going to keep 2 out to actually put on the containers, because even though it's cheap vinyl, so there's actually quite a few vinyl gloves. See? The reason being, you'll go through quite a bunch of these when you are handling. You want to handle. You can use instruments on burns wounds, but you really want to handle it. You want to put the gel on your hands and your fingers, preferably with sterile. These are not sterile gloves, and gently smooth it on. Burns, unless they're penetrating and deep and probably deadly in SHTF, are very, very painful. Some toilettes, antiseptic toilettes. Not really sure I'd use these directly on any wound, but I would use them around the wound, on the intact skin. This was what I kind of liked with this one. There's 3 tubes of this. This is actually eye wash. This can be used for any eye wash. The idea here is that if you have burn debris or smoke or soot in the eye, you can actually clean the eye out. Now if the cornea itself is burned, you might want to use this about every half an hour or so and keep the eye covered in between. And really you need a doctor, an ophthalmologist, and you don't have one in SHTF, so it is what it is. So this basically is what it's in here, and it's single use, so you open it, use it and throw it out. Of course in SHTF you would open it, use what you needed to, and you would keep it and keep using it. So I only have 3 of them, but I think that's kind of useful. It has marginally better tape. Some very cheap and quite unnecessary bandages. So this type of bandage separates in heat and cold quite easily. Cheap bandages, get the best bandage you can, but it's better than nothing. In fact, I might leave these in the cupboard for Kitty to use when she hurts herself. Now we finally have, what you probably have noticed is missing, is Gauze Dressings. So there are a few of these, and some of them are non-sticky ones, which is great, but mostly they're not. They do have a few eye patches, which is great, and again, with anything other than a very tiny small partial dressing, that's inadequate. There is some more of these non-adherent dressings, which are great to put on tops of wounds, so you can use them for that. There is what they claim to be a trauma pad. This, in my opinion, isn't really a trauma pad. This is probably the smallest trauma pad you've ever seen. The ones for burns are like this thick. I'm going to do the other videos. I will show you what hospitals use compared to this. And they do have 3 more packs of this stuff. And also at the bottom of the pack, Gel-O-Net. This is sterile gauze covered in usually an oil-based thing. So again, you can use this into the wound. It's sterile use. But again, I try and avoid putting this directly into a deep wound. For a superficial wound, it's a good idea. You will need to use salt water, normal saline, that's sterile preferably, to actually soak this, to remove this gently from most wounds, because there will be regrowth through the netting material. Now I'll put this back together again. So I'm also going to put away my spares while I'm at it, because why not? The whole point of having these kits is to have everything together. So that's why I've done it like this. Now this has quite a bit of space in it, so I'm actually now going to put that here and fill this one up a bit with the extra stuff. So now I'm way more prepped for a major burn in the house than I was before. What do you guys and girls use for burns? Do you actually focus on burns? Like, one of the major issues for a nuclear attack or general warfare is actually crush injuries and burns injuries. They're 2 of the major things. And in terms of domestic injuries, falls are way higher than anything else. But burns are pretty significant, and burns can be painful and they can be life-ending. And I don't know if we actually focus on it. When people have an Israeli bandage, yeah, you can use those for burns, but it's very thin gauze. You can need a ton of gauze. And the ability to be able to put even generic stuff onto a wound like this and remove it safely in a burns victim is going to help a lot with their chance of survival by cooling the area. Of course, like I said again, that is not for the first aid of a burn, that's for the ongoing treatment of a burn. So in other words, you do the first aid, but if the ambulance is delayed, you have this kit to cover the area with water-soluble material that will actually benefit the wound and not contaminate the wound and cause the burn centre more trouble. And if you can't use a hospital or a burn centre, this is all you've got. And it better work, and you better know what you're doing with it. So if you like this video, please give me a subscription or a thumbs up. If you didn't, please give me a thumbs down, and never watch my channel stuff again. Doodles. This was a Wolfie Terrier production 2021.